Good morning. Why do I do this? I have no idea. No one listens. What is wisdom? Was the thought as I awoke a couple of hours ago. I find this time of night, day, morning, whatever it is, closer to my heart. So, what is wisdom? 2 commandments: love God, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other way of interpreting that. I can give you the slightly fuller quote, but as the most funny little creatures say, pop up in the desert with their heads in the air. Simples. So yesterday, I met such a charming lady who, amongst other things, she was 84, on a bicycle, and just here in Harpenden, Hertfordshire, Hingerland, where hurricanes hardly ever happen. She said she cycled from John O'Groats to Land's End 5 times, and she didn't particularly say that doing it for charity. I think just for the sheer doing it. You know, and such a lively lady, full of beans, asked me about this whole thing, my staff, and my beard, to which I answered as briefly as I could. The staff is, thy rod and thy staff shall comfort thee still, from Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. So it's a staff, never to be used in an aggressive manner, to rest my poor old head on, whatever. And the beard and hair I will not cut till I die, because of the injustice of the English and my former wife perpetrated on my son, myself and my family. My son committed suicide at the age of 18, and this would now be his 28th Christmas coming up. So those were my 2 answers to her 2 questions. She asked those 2 questions, and she got 2 answers. And she reminds me of another lady I met up in a town called Alnwick in Northumberland. I was there in sort of August time this year, just for a little break when we could. And again, such a charming lady, but the point of these 2 ladies is they both deny God through Christ. Well, it's not for me to judge anyone. I just said, all I can offer is my faith. I am a Christian. I love God through Christ. And leave it at that, really. I mean, for heaven's sake, you can hardly tell people of that age to what to do. You try. You get a flea in your ear or more. So I'm just mulling over this, as one does, listening to my Beethoven as usual, and my spirit turned to this, which is the end of Ecclesiastes. I need glasses for it. The conclusion of the matter, so Old Testament Ecclesiastes. Now, all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Amen. Well, there we are then. I'm bringing in, I believe correctly, the full story, which is to love God, love your neighbour as yourself. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul and all thy mind and all thy strength. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Amen. But anyone can understand this. And to go through the whole of one's life, as it were, and miss the whole point, the whole meaning of life, the reason we human beings are in this world is to love God through Christ. That is what he wants. And that love includes to fear him. I wrestle with that. He is a fearful God. I looked up a picture of solar flares, sunspots. I believe it's an 11-year cycle or so. And it's to scale. There is a little pimple, as it were. The main part of the picture is this huge, great solar flare. That is the Earth to scale. And that's, our sun is not particularly one of the largest stars in the universe. And she was such a nice lady yesterday, so sort of vigorous and chirpy, and just the way she spoke, I did sort of say, well, so you're on your own, you're not, your husband's died or whatever. And she said, yes, no, I am, a long time ago, and so on. Well, it's so simple. The child can understand. In fact, children do understand. It's the adults who lose the plot. So last night I listened, Radio 4 does these really super programs. This chap Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, he's Canadian, retired from that job now, giving the Reith lectures, 3 lectures on all this financial stuff, and then had question and answer afterwards, and an economist, and he was saying, the economist, reflecting on Mr. Mark Carney's words of financial wisdom. Quite frankly, economics is not a 1 + 1 = 2 precise mathematical situation at all. It is very much a question of sort of setting financial parameters and then seeing what comes of it. So then it is down to the human beings to implement them one way or another. So all these bank scandals and corruption and all sorts, and the culture of this and that, and these big financial institutions leading to the financial crash of 2008 and so on and so forth, when apparently the whole world's banking system was virtually on the edge of total collapse. They stopped trusting each other, so they wouldn't lend any money to the other lot, which they do all the time normally. In my extremely limited knowledge of the technicalities of the financial world. And then the whole thing just grinds to a sticky halt, because in case that bank goes bust and you don't get it back later on when it's been fiddled about with financially, I hasten to add. But if the leaders of these banks, as in the Royal Bank of Scotland, whose purported size was considerably more than most countries' GDP. And the guy was an absolute out-and-out what's-it in his aims and intentions. Fred the Shred, he's labelled as the Scottish fellow. So if you have a crooked heart, then you will behave crookedly. And then again, I just remind myself of these things, that it's in the Gospels, essentially saying a good man will bring good out of the good stored up in his heart, and a bad man will bring bad out of the evil stored up in his heart, for out of the overflow come these things of the heart. Out of the overflow of the heart come either good or evil, depending on what you store up inside. So what you store up inside is love, hopefully. And I'm absolutely, unequivocally clear that the only true love to store is to love God through Christ. Amen.